Viewer discretion is advised. The following content includes graphic imagery and mature themes.
This isn't for the weak. And yes, feelings will get hurt. So brace yourself and welcome to the Hammer Drops. Welcome back to the show, folks. Happy Tuesday. It's been very cold where I'm at. I don't know how it's been where you guys are at, but if it's anything like it's been up here, I've heard a lot of snow, a lot of ice, all that shit. Hopefully y'all are safe and warm because let's face it, this weather sucks. So before we get into the show today, you know how we start this show every single time. If you like what you're hearing, you can definitely go follow me on social media. I'm heavily active over on Facebook and Instagram at the Hammer Drops. While you are there are two links in the bio. One that takes you to the website, thehammerdrops.com, and the other is a simple link tree that once you click on it, it's going to pop up and it's going to take you to all the other spots across the internet that you can find me, including YouTube. So while you're over on YouTube, if you're watching this, definitely hit that subscribe button, give the video a like, leave me a comment, and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. If you want to reach out to me, don't DM me because DMs I never get. 9 times out of 10, they end up going into some like hidden folder or whatever on social media. So email me at david@thehammerdrops.com. That's the best way for me to respond back to you in normal fashion. Let's just be honest. Also, in that link tree, it's going to take you to where you can listen to the podcast over there on iTunes and Spotify as well. So, with that all being said, let's get into the show, shall we? So, you ever get the feeling that you've been here before? Not exactly, but close enough that it makes your skin crawl, right? That's exactly what 2026 feels like at the moment. There's this tension in the air, this constant pressure cooker of emotion, outrage, distraction. And if you lived through 2020, you know exactly what the hell I'm talking about. You know, I mean, who could forget 2020? I mean, after all, our government really lit us up then. So, and here's the thing, folks. 2026 doesn't feel new. It doesn't feel like something original. It sure as hell feels like a rerun. Different headlines, different villains, maybe slightly different players, but it's the same script. And the worst part, most people don't even realize it's the same playbook. Let's go back to 2020 for a moment. Chaos everywhere, lockdowns, riots, protests, people yelling at each other online and in real life. Families broken, friendships lost. Fear amplified to the max. Moral outrage on a nonstop loop. And here's the kicker. While everyone was busy reacting, while everyone was busy picking sides, something bigger was happening behind the scene. And most of us didn't even notice. Fast forward to 2026. Different year, same emotional temperature. People are frantic, divided, screaming at each other, social media amplifying outrage like it's the most important thing in the world. And meanwhile, the real questions, the boring, uncomfortable ones, don't get asked. Take Minneapolis, for example. Billions of dollars defrauded from the American federal government. Billions. Where did it go? Who benefited? Who got rich? Who got held accountable? Almost nobody can explain it. And notice this, every time the money conversation starts to rise, something louder drops. A scandal, a viral outrage, a new cultural fight. And suddenly, that's the real story just disappears. That's not coincidence. That's distraction. That's exactly what we are seeing again in 2026. And now let's talk about the culture war. Remember Kyle Rittenhouse? Back in 2020, the liberal side repeated one phrase like it was carved in stone. He shouldn't have brought a gun to a protest. Moral certainty. No nuisance, no context, just outrage. Fast forward to today, and we hear the exact same phrasing coming from the conservative side about Preddy. Same words, same certainty, just flip fucking teams. Pause for a second and let that sink in. The same moral outrage, the same judgment, the same script, different actors, same story. That's how this game works. Both sides, so called enemies, are reading from the same exact fucking playbook. Everyone's busy fighting each other and nobody's watching the fucking system. And here's what really gets me. The pattern isn't new. All of this, the chaos, the outrage, the division was happening in 2020, right before COVID hit. And then COVID hit, and overnight, everything escalated. Fear exploded, trust vanished, rights disappeared, rules changed permanently, wealth shifted upward, and most people too busy fighting each other to even fucking notice. Now, in 2026, we see the same signals. Rising outrage, constant moral certainty, viral narratives, social media feeding the rage cycle. And the question is, if history repeats itself, what's next? Because the next act usually is huge, a crisis, an emergency, something that forces people to say, we didn't have a choice. And the people pulling the strings, they already planned it. Let's slow down here. I want you to really think about this. If you can't criticize your own side, if you only attack the other side while ignoring your own, you're not really informed. You're owned. Being far middle doesn't mean neutral. It means you see the game, you see the patterns, and once you see them, you can't fucking unsee them. Think about this pattern closely. These patterns closely. All right. 2020, the outrage over a single event. People pick a team, morality simplified to black and white. 2026, outrage over a single event. People pick a team, morality simplified to black and white. Notice how the language is almost identical. Should have, shouldn't have, moral failing, criminal behavior, outrage, cancel, destroy, just flip sides. And the money moves quietly while the rest of us are here just busy yelling. Now, let's slow it down and really consider the Minneapolis money angle. Billions moved, billions vanished, billions nobody explains. And while people argue over the morality of protests, guns, and viral videos, the real shifts in power and wealth happen quietly. It's almost laughable, honestly. If it weren't so infuriating, billions shifted while we were busy performing outrage online, and the exact same thing is happening again in 2026 with other headlines, other crises, other distractions. Let's talk about COVID as a turning point. Remember early 2020, people panicked. Government imposed rules, some justified, some not. Media amplified worst case scenarios. Everyone had an opinion. No one had the full picture. And while people were fighting over masks, lockdowns, vaccines, and politics, the biggest shifts were happening quietly. Wealth concentrated, rights quietly eroded, rules rewritten, systems changed permanently. And most people missed it because they were too busy being outraged. Sound familiar? That's exactly what we see now. The same emotional setup, the same fear cycles, the same distractions. And if history repeats, we should all be worried about what's coming next. Let's pause again. Think about this. Every single time this pattern repeats, the next act is usually justified by crisis. That's how the system works. The people who are prepared, they see the pattern. The people who aren't, they're caught reacting, scrambling, and catching up. You all remember what happened in 2020, right? Everybody was trying to rush out and stock up on food, stock up on toilet paper, stock up on all this. People were too fucking scared to leave their houses. And they would comply and go into these stores with these little paper masks that were doing absolutely nothing for them. And here we are. 2026, if we're not careful, we're going to be reliving 2020. Now, I know for myself, I sure as hell don't want to. I can't say that for anybody else, but I'm sure you folks don't want to as well. But here's the thing. Distractions happen for a reason. And we're seeing it. Billions were stolen by the Somalian people in Minnesota, in Minneapolis. The government up there in Minneapolis was on it. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, how do these politicians think we're so naive to not ask the question? Especially, let's take Ilhan Omar here for a second. Ilhan Omar, all of a sudden, is worth $44 million. It's kind of hard to get $44 million when your yearly salary is only $175,000, $150,000, whatever it is. So tell me, you haven't spent much time in office, yet you have $44 million. Kind of weird, isn't it? Let's take a look at Tim Walz. The moment that this stuff started happening up in Minneapolis, do you notice that ICE comes up there to start getting rid of the Somalians? And then all of a sudden, that Rene Good incident happened. And now we have another one that just happened this past weekend. I mean, you can't really, I mean, if it doesn't sound like I'm a firm believer if it walks like a duck and acts like a duck, it's a fucking duck. Well, that's exactly what this is. It sounds like a script. It's acting like a script. So therefore, it is a fucking script on what is happening. And unfortunately, too many people are falling for it because you guys don't want to ask the real fucking questions. The questions that people like myself will ask that I don't care because I want to know why things are happening the way they are. So I ask those questions. I hold all people accountable for everything. That includes politicians. You know, and like I said, you know, and now Tim Walz has the balls to send in and disrespect the National Guard so much, sends them in to hand out coffee and donuts to protesters and protect the protesters because that's what we need to do. We need to protect the voters. Let's just be fucking brutally honest. You're not there protecting the protesters because if the protesters were conservative, you would be locking them up. But the fact is the fact that the protesters there all probably voted for Tim Walz and Democrats alike. That is why the National Guard isn't doing anything except for sitting on the roadside, handing out coffee and donuts and, you know, hot chocolate to these fucking lunatics. Man, sure must be nice not to have a job and be out in the cold all day like that and, you know, just do stupid shit. Don't you think? I mean, I'm just being honest with you folks. So here's the real fucking kicker. The danger is not the fights we're having. The danger is the fights we think we're having. While the bigger moves are actually happening quietly behind the scenes. So what's the solution? Awareness? Pattern recognition? Following the money? Asking the uncomfortable questions? Refusing to get dragged into the same recycled outrage every single cycle. Because the cycle will repeat, as it always does. And the people who notice first, they get to play the game instead of being played. Let's repeat that for effect. Same script, different actors, same outcome. Watch closely. Follow the money. Don't get distracted. And above all, don't get played. Because 2026 is not new. It's just a remix. And if you're not careful, history is about to show you what comes next. And now, like I said, we saw what happened back then. We saw the history. You don't think our government doesn't have something in the background right now just to let loose? Because if you think that, man, I wish I could just live inside your head for 5-10 minutes to think that. Because the truth of this whole thing is what comes next, you know, it's not going to be good. They've already tried to, you know, started trying earlier to bring up COVID again, that COVID's making a comeback. Then it's a new strain of the flu. This new strain of the flu is getting everybody sick. Kids are dying, this and that. You know, you see the fear cycles that are happening in the news outlets. You can't trust news outlets, folks, because they're part of the system. It's just propaganda being spewed by your local and your favorite anchors. Why wouldn't they take the money? They sign a contract for a reason. So they're gonna read whatever's in front of them on that teleprompter, and it doesn't matter what it is. They're gonna read it and read it and read it and spread the fear over and over and over again because it's working. All this fear mongering, it has worked, and it's worked so well. I'm just blown away that it still has for a lot of people. And just look at Minneapolis again. Again, I can't stop stressing on Minneapolis. We're seeing it happen up there. Minneapolis is where it all started again. With the whole George Floyd thing. Now, then it started again with Rene Good. But it started before Rene Good because the billions that were caught, from Nick Shirley going up there and doing investigation, reporting, to find out what the fuck is going on. You have to send a YouTuber to go up. A YouTuber goes up there on his own dime and does all this, and then all this happens because they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar. Tim, you think Tim Walz just stepped away from running for, to be governor again? No, man. He didn't just fucking step away because he didn't want to be governor. He stepped away because he had to. See, because once he steps away, he can't be subpoenaed by Congress. If he gets reelected, he gets subpoenaed by Congress, and he has to actually fucking tell him what happened. But the fact of him not running again and getting reelected, now Congress is going to have an even harder time trying to get him in office, trying to find out where that money is. Hence why we are fucking seeing what is happening up there right now with all this chaos and all this crap that's happening. But you guys just think some people just seem to think it's not a script. It's not part of whatever. It's just, this guy, Rene Good, was such a good person. She was murdered by an ICE agent for doing absolutely nothing. But let's recap that like I did in my one episode. Rene Good, was such an excellent mother that, she had her 6-year-old in school while her and her wife were impeding an investigation for ICE that was trying to get a sexual predator off the streets. So her wife, who ultimately I would blame for her death by telling her to go, baby, go for doing what she did, ended up suffering the ultimate sacrifice by being shot for almost hitting the ICE agent. And then we see this gentleman that got shot and killed over the weekend. Now, that one's different in a lot of different ways because, there's different opposing video that's out there that shows that he didn't have his firearm, that he was disarmed at the time that he got shot. If that is truly the case, then that agent needs to be arrested. That agent needs to be held accountable because that's not right. Now, I can sit here and say that, and take the side of most conservatives and say, you shouldn't be bringing a gun to a protest, which you shouldn't. Kyle Rittenhouse was wrong for that, and I will agree with that. He shouldn't have brought his gun. But Kyle Rittenhouse, I think it was a different scenario at the time. He was more protecting the businesses up in Kenosha rather than going to a protest. So different kind of scenarios in a way, but still not so much. Bottom line is, if you're going to go to a protest, go exercise your First Amendment right. I'm all for that. I don't give a fuck who you are. If you want to exercise your First Amendment right, you have that fucking right. That's your constitutional right, and nobody can take that away from you. But do it smartly. Do it wisely. Because if you go into these areas with a firearm and they tell you to disarm yourself and you don't, this is what's going to happen. And I partially like to think that this is what the powers that be want to happen. They want a civil war. They want us all against each other. They want us all at each other's fucking throats. Let's just be fucking brutally honest here, because that's how they're going to win. They're going to win because we are at each other's throats. The left's against the right's against the left. Everybody hates everybody. If you say one thing bad about one side, you're going to be attacked. And I know this from fact because I say shit about both sides and I'm attacked by either side of the aisle and I don't fucking care because they don't want to hear it because they're blindly supporting a politician, whereas I don't. So it's easier for me and people like myself to call out the bullshit. But this is what the government wants. This is what they want. They want the Civil War. They want to be able to implement, whatever they want. They want full control. Power needs control. And the easiest way to control people is to dumb them down, to make them not want to do things, not have jobs, depend on the government, all this stuff. Why do you think like society is the way it is? It's more acceptable for kids to sit at home and play video games all day, eat a bunch of trash food, get fat, get lazy, and not do a damn thing. Because those are the easiest people to control. If this was back, like way back, when people ate healthy, people they went to school, they played outside, they did stuff, they weren't stuck behind a screen the entire time. Physical fitness was a big part of society. Well, let's be honest, it wouldn't have been so easy to control those people as it is today. But also the fact that people are you have the indoctrination camps now, which are schools that indoctrinate kids. And unfortunately, you see parents doing the same fucking thing. I saw a video of a lady that was letting her fucking child, watch what happened up in Minnesota over the weekend. Like, and the words that were coming out of this kid's mouth, MAGA this, MAGA that, very pro-left talking points, which I'm assuming his mom was that. So you have parents that don't allow your kids to make up their own mind and start putting their viewpoints and their beliefs into their kids' heads just to make good little liberals, good little fucking robots. And the scary part about that is those kids that are watching this, and like for that mother to do that to her son, that's the future of this nation, this whole country, is those kids. I'm glad I'm at the age I'm at. I'm glad I don't have kids because I would not want my kids or grandkids to live in a society that is like it is today. Because let's be honest, man, our society is fucked. I mean, you always thought it was like, blacks versus whites versus this versus that. Oh man, it's not. Our government wants that. And so you start questioning those things and asking those questions, you're just going to live with your blinders on. Is that a way to really want to live your life? Do you really want to live your life with blinders on, just looking one thing? Like, I just see this in front of me. That's it. I don't see anything else that's going on the right or the left. Because you guys are doing a good fucking job at it. So what do I think is going to happen next? Well, if the script remains the same, just different players, I could see something coming up in the next, we got midterms coming, so probably close to midterms. I wouldn't be surprised if something pops off out of the woodworks, another illness of some sort, mysterious illness, another fast vaccine, more people dying, more people at each other's throats, more fighting, more arguing, families being broken up, friends lost, family lost, all over bullshit. That's exactly what's happening. That's what happened in 2020. That's exactly what's happening now. How many of you can actually say that you can go, because I have a family that has some liberals in it, and it's very hard to have family anything with them because they automatically look at you because they think you're conservative. Like my family, the liberals in my family think I'm a conservative because I have very conservative viewpoints. But again, I see things. I see things for what it is on both sides. But because they look at me and they think I'm this conservative, tensions are very high, very high. It's very rare that I get together with everybody in my family because we do have some that are liberals because they don't want to. Hell, I just had a death in the family, and literally it was my uncle who's a liberal. He came, barely said 2 words to me, and it's like, okay. And I know my uncle doesn't like me, and I'm okay with that. I I'm a grown ass man. I'm okay if you don't like me, or if you hate me, you don't like me. I don't fucking care. But it was just ironic, you know. It's like, yeah, even at a funeral, at a death, you just get the cold shoulder from that relative because of his beliefs don't match yours. Whatever happened in the time where, I remember, growing up, you can hear the conversations between neighbors, parents and neighbors, and they would always talk about how the government was just fucking everybody and this and that. And it wasn't about what side of the aisle you were on. It was about the government as a whole was fucking you. Not that you're conservative, not that you're a Democrat or a liberal, but the government in a whole was fucking you. And they all got along. They got along just fine. They were all laughing. They were all, we would have them over for fucking, barbecues, all that stuff. And everybody would just have fun and, just get along. Now, you can't do that. You think you're going to be able to invite your neighbor over? If you have conservative views, invite your neighbor over. If you're, or let's just say if you're conservative, do you think you can invite your liberal friend over to a barbecue, or not even a friend, your liberal neighbor over to a barbecue, and be able to have a civil conversation? Because 9 times out of 10, it turns into name calling. It turns into this. It turns into that. And then you're arguing, then you're fighting, you're bickering, and it's just like, I'm not coming back over there. Fuck this person. Because you don't want to take the time to get to know the actual person themselves, because you've already based your opinion of this person on his viewpoints. How is that living a good life? How is that being able to create conversations? How is that? How do you justify that? So I think on that note, that's where I'm going to leave it today. And I know this was kind of a heavy episode. It's going to make you think. And that's what this is intended to do, is to make you think and to question everything. Whether you're on the right or the left, question it all. And maybe, just maybe, you might find yourself coming more closer to the middle. And that's what we need right now. We need more people in the middle to facilitate conversation. Because without it, we're just doomed. All right, folks. I want to thank you guys for watching today. I want to thank you for listening. If you're wherever you're listening to this at, if you can definitely do me a favor, hit the like button, share it, leave a comment, rate the show. If you're over on social media, you can find me over on Facebook and Instagram. Those are the 2 spots I'm very heavily active. And in the bio, you'll find those 2 links. One to the website, thehammerdrops.com. The other is a link tree that will take you to all the other spots, including YouTube, where you can find me. While you're over on YouTube watching this, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Help me build up that channel, because it's been a real drag to build that up. It doesn't get the output that it should, but it's the algorithms. Once I break them, and by you subscribing and liking and starting to share the stuff, it's going to break those algorithms to be able to get this stuff out to more and more people. So until the next time, folks, let's try to be good to one another.